Many African leaders have expressed concern and dismay after alleged discrimination against Africans in Guangzhou, China. Several reports say the African community in Guangzhou has been left destitute after allegedly being evicted from their homes. They claim hotels and hostels in the region have also turned them away. The Chinese government has denied the allegations. Amidst the storm, the Chinese government yesterday donated protective gear and ventilators to South Africa to help fight the coronavirus. Let's get a bit more clarity now. Joining us telephonically from the Chinese embassy is the Charge d'Affaires, Li Nan. Thanks very much for talking to us and welcome to Morning Live.
Okay, thank you very much. And also good morning to you and to all your listeners.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me in your program.
It's an absolute pleasure, sir. Now, talk to us about the allegations of xenophobia against African nationals living in Guangzhou.
Actually, firstly, I must say the term of so-called xenophobia or so-called discrimination against Africans in Guangzhou is too much hyping up. We have noticed some of the recent media reports, especially via social media, alleging some of the so-called ill treatment of Africans in Guangzhou. But actually, I think we are following up the issue, and we pay high attention to that. But I think it's too much hyping up right now, according to the reports. Secondly, I want to make China's government's position very clear. That is, all foreign nationals in China are treated as equals. China rejects any differential treatment of them and also has zero tolerance for discrimination in any form. Yeah.
So how do you explain what's happening? Because there has been footage coming out of African nationals living on the streets of Guangzhou. It surfaced on social media. This is, of course, prompting African leaders to express their concerns. So what is going on?
For that, I think I have to read more reports about that. But actually, according to our latest information, all the issues come out because currently the Guangzhou municipality has stepped up their measures to contain the spreading of the coronavirus. Although, up to now, the Chinese government has taken very comprehensive measures, rigorous measures to contain the spreading of COVID-19, and we have achieved some progress, and we have effectively put the virus under effective control. However, now, and we are facing a very urgent task, that is to prevent imported cases and the domestic resurgence of local cases. Guangzhou is an international city, and the risk is even higher facing them. So to achieve this goal, the Guangzhou municipality government has issued regulations that all nationals, including Chinese nationals and foreign nationals, upon their entry to China, should take 14 days of quarantine isolation in designated places. As far as I know, so all these nationals, including Chinese nationals, foreign nationals from 13 other countries, such as Russians, Australians, and of course some African brothers. So these measures are not especially targeting against African nationals. So according to the latest news release from Guangzhou City, more than 4,000 African nationals took the test, and 111 of them turned out to be positive. But now they are well taken care of. So during the implementation of the isolation regulations, there occurred some occasional isolated cases due to maybe misunderstanding or miscommunication. For example, some foreign nationals, even potential or symptomatic patients, were reluctant to wear masks and moving around, so thus causing panic among local communities. And I read one of the report that is one foreign individual who was confirmed positive even attacked local health workers. So I think this kind of small instances, I think there may be some of that. But I think that's far from so-called discrimination or xenophobia.
Yeah.
Because right now, when we are facing the global challenge of the containment of COVID-19, we need more understanding and the cooperation of all the nationals, including foreign nationals in China. That is, we must observe all the regulations to defeat the virus. During this process, like South Africa, China, and many other governments, they have taken some compulsory measures so that situation will be brought under control.
Yeah.
So I think it's understandable, yes.
Okay, so I'm going to throw a couple of questions at you because I think I've given you enough time to explain the Chinese point of view and where China may be coming from. So you talk about the tests, you talk about that there is no discrimination, you talk to the fact that, there are other nationals from other countries, even though there isn't a single African country that is on the list of those that have some high-risk nations that include the United States and European countries. No African countries are on that list, and yet Africans seem to be discriminated against the most. We've got stories of South Africans that have been tested, told to pack their bags within an hour, leave, picked up by a bus and thrown into quarantine for weeks on end, or for 14 days. And that is not fair, with absolutely no reason given as to why, because their tests have come through. These are personal stories from South Africans, so I'm not sure if there perhaps is a little bit of a gap of the information that you have as opposed to what is happening on the ground.
According to your description, I don't know where you get the news. For me, I have never read any news report about that.
These are stories, sir, that are coming through from South Africans living in China, talking directly to us as the SABC.
Okay, for the news stories, we need further clarification. But I can assure you again and again that there's no discrimination is allowed in China.
Yeah.
We have the regulation, we have the laws, and even for the Guangzhou municipality government, during this process, during the implementation, I think they take quite a few measures. For example, to provide health management service to all nationals, including foreign nationals. They also provide accommodation to those who take tests or are under medical observation with reduced price, even free of charge for those who are in financial difficulties. And also they have set up very smooth communication channels with consulate generals of foreign countries. And also they have made it very, very clear to the public that is no discrimination is allowed, is tolerated.
Yeah, so let's talk to a very public incident that happened. You may not be aware of South African cases, but surely you're aware of a major case that came up where McDonald's in China put up a sign saying, and I'll read it to you, "We've been informed that from now on, black people are not allowed to enter the restaurant. For the sake of your health, consciously notify the local police for medical isolation. Please understand," and the letter goes on. I mean, this has been global. McDonald's have even come out and apologized and said that this is ridiculous. They are not standing by this. Now, how do you explain that away?
For that kind of issue, I must say, for me, I need to read more about this because I didn't read it before I take this interview. But actually,
that unfortunate, sir, that is unfortunate because
for the individual case, if there's anything, I think we need to look into that to see the background and to see what should be done to deal with that.
It is unfortunate that you haven't even read up about the case that's happening from McDonald's. I mean, this is a case that's been around for a few days, and certainly you must have read up about this. And I find it difficult to accept answers of you saying that you're not aware of all of these and you need to do more research on this. We have such good relations between Africa and China.
I'm not in a position to know all the individual cases because they didn't go to us.
But the McDonald's China one, you're not aware of?
They did not tell us the story. Yes, and also I think currently, right now, we must, fight together as one.
Indeed, and that is, I mean, when
this COVID-19,
yeah,
as I have been, you mentioned earlier in the program, that is, for example, yesterday we held this handing over ceremony of medical assistance supplies to South Africa. Since the very beginning of the COVID-19, even China now is still fighting against this virus. We have been providing assistance to all 54 African countries on this continent, including the one that does not have established diplomatic relations with us. I think we are doing that with great sincerity and with solidarity. I think this virus knows no borders, no race, no races, and also I think it's a global challenge which needs a global solution.
Yeah.
So I think currently we need to fight together against this virus to put this pandemic under control as soon as possible, so that we can, save more lives. That is our basic idea.
And
that is why China is doing whatever we can.
Indeed.
Help our South African brothers, especially now even local Chinese communities, even the Chinese central government, local government, enterprises, NGOs, the Chinese embassy, the Chinese local communities, enterprises here, all of them have been now mobilized up.
Yeah, and this is fair enough, because we do acknowledge and we certainly are aware, and as of yesterday as well, the Chinese government coming through to try and help and provide services. And Africa and China have unbelievable relations, they really do. And this is why this issue is such a big one, where we're suddenly now seeing discrimination against African nationals living in China. And it is a very, very big issue, and something that needs to be made very much so public, and we need to do something about it. And it's not something that we can't be aware of, and that we're embracing everybody, because it is not the case right now. These are individual stories coming out of China that are being told, and I urge you to look into them.
I'm not aware all of the individual cases, because some of them will just go to you or to some media.
Yeah.
If you have some of the information, I would like to ask you to share with us
Certainly.
more information. No problem.
Yeah.
For that, I think it's very clear right now. As you mentioned, China and Africa, we have a long-term relationship. We are true friends, like members of one big family. And sometimes it's natural for family members to have some difference or hiccups. Just like the tongue may fight with the teeth sometimes. But as one family, we can resolve our differences in a friendly and proper way, and solidarity and brotherhood between our two sides should not be affected by these occasional incidents. And also it is our strong belief that China and Africa relations are strong and mature enough to withstand any test in times of adversity. Yes.
So if I may ask you, this of course has gone as high up as the African Union, that has expressed dismay at this, and the incidences against Black Africans that are living in China, that have been made to go into quarantine. These are students, these are working individuals that have been there since. They haven't even left the country. They have stayed there throughout the breakout from Wuhan, in Beijing. These are all residents that have been there in the area, and they've never left. Why suddenly the change in stance? Have you not heard anything about this?
Yeah, I know about this. let me tell you, as I mentioned earlier, the non-urgent risk, the task for China now, it is to reduce the risk of imported cases and also the resurgence of local cases. I mentioned, generally speaking, we have successfully put this virus, the spreading of this virus, under effective control. But the risk of imported cases is increasing every day. I give you one example. For one day, we found more than around 100 cases, new cases, but 98 of them is imported cases. And
yes.
Also we have found more and more, all symptomatic cases. That is someone who has no symptoms of being infected, but actually is very infectious. That is very dangerous. So that's why we have stepped up the measures. I give you an example. As our former ambassador, Mr. Lin, after he was back into Beijing, he was put under isolation for exactly more than 2 weeks, and then takes the test, and then he can go back to the new office. That is the thing we are doing right now. We are taking tests. It does not mean that we are biased against you. No, that's not the case. That's for the safety to you, for the safety to all your relatives, to your friends, and to the greater public. I think that is something, that is what we are doing. It's not because we want to target, and now in China, we have tens of thousands of foreigners, including our African brothers. Still, a lot of them are there. Like African students who are studying in China. So I think during the COVID-19, after outbreak, I think they were well taken care of. Even, I must say, they even enjoyed the so-called supranational treatment because, we treat our foreign friends, with great sincerity. We welcome them, and when they were staying with us during the difficult time, and we think that is great support to us. That is why we want to thank them for that.
And
even now, we are still doing whatever we can to help our African brothers and sisters, to allow them to enjoy the cordiality in China. I'm sure they will be received, with friendship,
Well, I mean, with respect, that is not the case. That is not the story coming through from a lot of not only South Africans, but other African nationals that are living there, which preempted a phone call between ambassadors on Monday with Chinese authorities to stop the discrimination against Africans. And this is a big problem. And, I accept that you may not know every individual story, but I urge you to look up on this, especially being a representative in an African country. I think you need to know more about this. I really do, sir. And we do thank you for being with us here on the program, but we will invite you back and perhaps to share a story of somebody that you've spoken to in China that's going through this. And we will invite somebody as well to maybe share their story so that you become more enlightened as to what is actually happening in China.
Okay, no problem. Okay, and also thank you for inviting me. And also I must put one word in addition. That is, as you mentioned, I think yesterday, 2 days ago, our state councillor and also Foreign Minister, Mr. Wang Yi, His Excellency, already called Mr. Faki, the chair of the AU Commission. They had a very nice discussion about the issue, and they exchanged ideas how to move forward. And they had reached the consensus that for those issues, I think we as brothers, if there's anything happen between us, we can find a way out. We can do it in a family way. I think that is the basic idea. Also, our Vice Minister, also Mr. Chen, had a very candid meeting and a sincere meeting with African ambassadors in Beijing. So they also had very in-depth discussions about that, and we reached a mutual understanding on that.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. We'll leave it there for this morning. Thanks for giving us your views on what's happening, because it's important to hear from the Chinese embassy here represented in South Africa, but it's also important to take into account the stories that are happening from our own South Africans living in different areas within China, and they are disputing this, saying that they are being discriminated against. And I do hope that we get further news on this and invite some of them onto the program to talk about this and put them in touch with the embassy, because they clearly are not aware of these stories, which is unfortunate. Li Nan is the Chinese embassy's charge d'affaires, talking to us here about these allegations. All right, a bit late with the news, but let's hand you over to